Blast into the future. Let's go.
Welcome to another episode of Innovation Network Newsletter with your hosts Patrick and Ergon, philosophers and analysts.
Nou, niet te lang vanochtend. Dat
Ja,
we
het
tijd voor.
remixen?
Ja,
Remixing it on the
remixen.
fly.
Ja.
Good
Nou,
morning, buddy.
we zijn er weer. We hadden het er al over. Het is veel te vroeg voor ons. Dus we hopen dat het ook veel te vroeg is voor jullie. Want zo zijn wij.
And I think we should switch to English or not.
Oh yeah, English. Great, yeah.
That's how early it is, guys.
We were just saying how early it is, and that it's too early, and we hope it's also too early for you, because shared misery is... How does it say that in English? Gedeelde smart is halve smart. Shared misery is half the misery. Yeah.
Exactly, something like that. Yeah. So, we got a long list of all kinds of innovations over the past weeks. Do we dive into it? 2 major robot updates, I think. One is Figure 2, and one is Unitree. But what do you think of this new video? Because the first video really shocked me because they had a conversation with it and the machine knew what it did, knew where it were. Now you just see it walking. Actually, I don't like this second video as you compare it to the first one. What do you think?
I think that this robot is on ketamine.
Same thing as by...
Look, for everybody listening or watching now, apparently, according to the last Lex Friedman podcast, which we're also going to discuss, it's very popular now to tell everybody about that you've been to the Amazon doing ayahuasca. I'm going to take that a step further. I'm going to talk about ketamine in our show and how it seems like all these incredible robots that are being released, they first come and show us their hands and they're like, ooh, look at this. Ooh, I can move all my fingers. Ooh, yeah, I'm super dexterous. And then 5 seconds later, they're doing the ketamine walk. And it's just super funny.
Oh, that is the ketamine walk. All right. I thought it was the Biden walk. So is there a relation between ketamine and Biden?
Yeah, that's definitely closely related.
Okay.
The Biden walk and the ketamine walk are very closely related.
Okay, that brings me to the second video then. And you tell me what drugs this robot is on. Let me see if I can show that.
Yeah.
Is it real?
This is the Unitree G1 upgraded version for mass production. So this is a $16,000 robot, and we actually know somebody who ordered one to the Netherlands, so It's coming. And it's so funny because I was literally last night discussing how all these robots, because Jai was here and he's in the ambassadors, and Jai was saying like, why are all these robots walking the ketamine walk, this crazy silly walk when they're so dexterous? And literally they went home and I opened YouTube and I saw this video and I was like, okay, yeah, they're trying to make a statement here. But it's funny how the Unitree really looks like a gorilla when he does that jump.
Yeah.
See how he makes that move where he puts his one hand forward, so just in case he falls over, he can support himself. It's literally the way gorillas also do it. So that was the first thing I thought.
All these robot designers looking in nature to mimic the behavior of animals? With Atlas, the dog, the small flies, that they just monitor how flies really move and then create the robot accordingly.
Yeah.
And
I
of
think,
course, this video as well, let me show you, they do it again in the very end.
Oh, kicking the robot, yeah.
Why the video is very cool until then, and then they keep kicking the robot.
I don't know. It's such a stupid way of trying to show off that your robot is very capable of staying balanced.
Exactly.
I don't know why they keep doing that. But yeah, I think we've covered these robots a few times now, and I think at the start of the year, I'm pretty sure it was in January when the first kind of new video models came rolling out. People were like, "Oh, 2024 is the year of the video AI," and I said very specifically then, I said, no, it's going to be the year of robotics, and that's exactly what we're seeing, because we're literally 6 months in, or 7. And we're seeing these robots being rolled out, and it's not just one. The thing I want to show is I have an image of all the humanoid robotics that are being developed right now from all the different companies, and it's 12 or so. Right?
Yeah,
so it's not one individual company, but it's like, imagine the automotive market starting out with 12 brands launching their product.
Exactly. That's exactly what's happening. What's also cool is we see these pictures of Midjourney 1 to Midjourney 6, and then you see the incremental development over a very short period of time. We could have the same with the robotics, right? These robots, the G1, the Figure 2 it goes so rapidly compared to the robots that we had 2 years ago due to AI. So that's maybe also something that we can include in our keynote. I was wondering if there are 2 new releases, Llama, Grok 2. Did you have any chance to compare these things, look at them?
I have been using Llama actively through Perplexity mostly for the last few weeks, but I have not tried out the new Grok. This is Grok, yeah, so I got it right here. Is this the newest? Yeah, Grok 2 Mini Beta. Yeah, it's right here. Hey Grok, show me why people think you are so awesome.
The first time is immediately important because a little bit later we're going to talk about Elon Musk and Lex Fridman, right? But this was also one of the things that Elon said. His strategy is towards having Twitter as a platform for real-time information access. And he sees it really as a game changer on the second information, but also all the information that the robots and the cars are continuously consuming. So he has way more data live, real time, to continually train his AI. That's a pretty strong strategy there.
Yeah, it is a strong strategy, and I do believe now that he has a better plan, so to speak, for how all of this is going to integrate together. Question always is, did he have this plan from the get-go, or did it take shape as he went? If you're a smart guy, you can jump into something and then figure it out along the way when it comes to these technologies. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what he's doing. He's definitely ramping up really quickly. The speed at which he's scaling up their capacity and capabilities is very impressive. And the one thing is, people over the years have criticized Elon Musk for his leadership style and his decisions. And the shareholders have tried to rattle his cage, but the truth is the man has been and still is very much in the saddle of all the companies that he runs. Absolutely. Very much in control. And that's the one thing that might give us pause to think about this now. I didn't really believe that he was going to be able to catch up at the start of this year, but I might have to eat my shoe when it comes to it, because if we're looking at OpenAI, I'm not sure what's going on there, but it still doesn't feel like it's a stable company. It doesn't feel like Sam really has a grip now on what's going on there. No. People keep leaving. People keep going on long leaves that signal. They don't necessarily signal that everything is going very well and everything is very stable over there.
Exactly. So. And if you then think about, should this all be open source, or like OpenAI is doing behind closed walls? At first, at the beginning, I thought it's in pretty safe hands there with Ilya. But then all people are leaving the organization. There's not so good news about it. So where do you want it then behind closed doors, right? Or do you want it open source? But Grok is also not completely open source. Only Llama is, right?
No, Grok, I don't think Grok is open source, even though Elon Musk...
He says it, but...
It's always very... So, no, there you go. But I do like this, because I've not been using Grok a lot. 1, the answers are really quick. 2, so far it's being completely honest. And I think I turned fun mode off. Yes, I did. So that's why didn't have any humor. And I like to keep that off. But I think that this is very valuable. Now, there's one interesting thing in the last Joe Rogan show with Peter Thiel, which, by the way, I'm not sure I could recommend anybody listen to it because Joe Rogan really can't have a normal conversation anymore. Every podcast he has to be about aliens and every crazy conspiracy
Again,
theory
aliens,
known
yeah.
to man. Like he just keeps bringing up the crazy stuff, and you have really intelligent people in there like Peter Thiel who are basically looking like Jedis trying to or Agent Smith trying to dodge all the bullets, and still trying to be reasonable. But there was a one interesting thing that was being mentioned at some point by Peter Thiel, I think, and considering the man's intelligence and capabilities, something we might ponder. But he said the problem with AI is that once we create AI of the human level, which is by far the most important development in his opinion, so not AGI, but just reaching human level, because then that's when its true disruption starts. And that's also what I've been saying. I was talking about ACI in the past, so artificial capable intelligence. So the point where we're reaching an AI that can operate on a human level or slightly above, because that's when society will get disrupted, because that means that we can start replacing people anywhere in basically every normal position. But what he said is that once we progress beyond that, we can only do that in a world where we have truly altruistic beings, because only truly altruistic beings would not use such a technology for evil. And because of the incredible power that these kind of technologies bring to the table, the only other option where you could have it is if you live in an absolute authoritarian society where there's absolute control over this technology, so it cannot be used
And one or
to
the
the
other.
detriment of humanity.
Yeah.
And I thought that really has me gotten thinking for the last 2 days now, because I do agree that unless we have one of these two scenarios, and the interesting thing was then he went on because he talked about aliens, so I'll just add this little tidbit. But so Peter Thiel said aliens have to be angels or demons, because they have to be either truly altruistic or they are truly evil. They cannot be either other way, because then they would never have this technology available to use, because they would have killed themselves with it, which is a super interesting way of thinking about it, as crazy as it seems. But just let that sink in. Any civilization that mastered this level of technology has to be either truly altruistic, so angels, or they're demons. Otherwise, they would have exterminated themselves with it, most likely. And that's also how he thinks about us. And that also really got me thinking, because I don't think there's any way to make humans not create a technology that at least one of us would use for the wrong reasons. And that is a scary thought. Now, I didn't want to make this a scary episode.
Well, yeah, it's an interesting conversation, of course. Yeah. But so far, so good with all the dangerous technology that we already have in the past 6 years. Yeah, it only takes one or two idiots to make it completely crazy. You're absolutely right there. Here you go. It's going to be a fun episode all of a sudden.
Wow. Okay, so I would say that Grok still makes itself guilty to what I've seen with the other AI models that they went through as they developed. This is like an overly long and intricate answer. And this is actually going back to your earlier question, have you tried Llama? One of the things that I've liked about Llama so far is that it very often initially answers with a reasonably short answer that only touches upon the core of your question and makes it far more conversationally comfortable than, for example, this. Now, the question is, if I turn on fun mode, would I get a different answer?
Well, do it. On the other hand, the type of question that you now ask, it's okay to have an extensive answer to that is a little bit balanced from multiple angles. So what do you need with only a small?
Yeah. Okay. Short.
Let's take that first topic that you have there, Jobless, to make a pivot to the UBI report created by Sam Altman. It's been released a couple of weeks ago already. It was during my holiday, but I was wondering what you thought of that. I saw some articles saying that I was basically unrelated and UBI was unrelated to AI. And I think they are very much related. Without UBI, it's at least a base to keep everybody alive with welfare, right? I don't see them separated. It's interesting how they draw that conclusions based on that report from Sam Altman.
Yes. So help me. Who said that AI and UBI were not related?
Yeah, something like that. Let me see if I can find the article.
Because I went over all the
This
I
one.
went over all the reports. Oh, artificial intelligence isn't a good argument for basic income. Okay, so yeah.
What a headliner, right?
Yeah. I think if you take this headliner exactly literally as it stands, artificial intelligence isn't a good argument for basic income, then you could maybe have a conversation around that. But it's not about whether it's an argument. It's about whether AI is basically, I would almost call it a stroke that beats the camel's back. Is that how you say it? It's like it's the definitive push into that kind of realm, because AI is what will 100% start to replace, is already actually
It's already
factually
happening.
already
It's already
replacing,
happening. Huge.
it's already replacing white collar jobs, right? I literally went on a date 2 weeks ago in the middle of the night to the McDonald's at 2:00, and this girl told me that she got fired in part because her company had replaced her with AI, right?
Yeah.
So this is real. This is happening, right? I'm still happy she wanted to go on a date with me, especially because I'm an advocate of AI. But this is real. And then we can say we looked at the robots just now, right? That figure too was
That
in a
will be the next
BMW
wave.
factory putting things in a machine. So this is where we're going, right? There's no doubt about this. Big brands are investing because they all understand that if you can build one robot at, even if it's 50,000 euros, you invest in it once and you have some maintenance, but it's going to be significantly cheaper than any human you could ever hire. There's
Amazon
no way
at the
around it.
moment is employing more robots than humans. Let that sink in.
Yeah, so there's no way around this.
Yeah.
There is going to be a race to the bottom, so to speak, but that has a negative connotation. But there's going to be a race to the bottom for companies in replacing their human employees with artificial intelligence and robotics. That means that the majority of the population of Western countries, which has already been exporting most of their jobs to low-wage countries in the second and third world for decades, is going to now face a significant job loss situation. These second and third world countries are going to see the same, because not even the Chinese sweatshop can compete with a robot if it doesn't need to sleep, doesn't need to eat, doesn't need to smoke, doesn't need to go to the toilet. So ultimately, there's no way around it. If we want to retain any kind of economic structure that can still function as a capitalist economic structure as the world is functioning today, we will need to provide people with currency. They need money to spend.
That
and if they
means
don't have a job,
extreme taxation of the companies in charge, making all the money of the robots. Otherwise, you cannot finance that level of UBI. It's going to be welfare plus.
Exactly. So although I believe that UBI ultimately will only be a stopgap, it will only literally be like a tourniquet to stop the bleeding from global economies just collapsing in on themselves overnight. It won't be the end stage. We'll have to transition on from that. Right. And I don't think that is a bad thing. But saying that AI is not a good argument for UBI, if you believe that, you simply are not fully embracing or understanding where we're headed.
And that's why I don't understand the tone of voice of that report. I've scanned through it. They've given a group of people $1,000 for a period of a year. And the results were, and I'm cutting it short now, is that after a year, the positive effects of getting those $1,000 were diminishing back to normal state.
Yes, but they did make.
Of course, if you give somebody 10,000 or 100,000, everything is going to turn to normal after a certain period of time. What does that have to do? That conclusion have to do with it? I don't get that. But
that wasn't necessarily the final conclusion. I've read all of them, and they do say, look, beyond a year, it becomes harder for us or nigh impossible to see any significant differences. However, they made reservations. They said, for one, there were economic developments that could be completely canceling out the effects, so that we can't really notice them anymore because we're going back to baseline. But that doesn't mean that without the extra money, these people wouldn't be below baseline. Yeah. And they also make a lot of other it's been 2 weeks already since I read it, but they make some very good cases. But I think the other problem with this study is the size of the
scope.
It's a study done in the US. So it's not done in a Western European country, right? It's done in the USA, where there is literally no welfare state. meaning that these people got $1,000 extra might already just be bringing them to the base. They were talking about a nurse who was doing 3 jobs, and she used $1,000 a month so she could do some extra education to get a bachelor's degree. This is how desperate these people were. And there was another guy who basically just took some extra day off to have his hobby. Things that for a European would be not even a consideration, because we already get like decent holidays, right? Yeah. So 1, it being done in the US really makes it skewed, in my personal opinion. 2, it was only done for a few years. 3, it's only $1,000 a month, which for most people isn't a third of your necessary income in today's world, right? Oh. You need $3,000 at least before taxes to do anything.
With that, I totally agree. We need larger scales, bigger testing rounds across the globe to find a way to get to UBI quicker and think about this quicker than we do currently. Otherwise, we'll get a very messy situation.
There's also studies being done in Europe where people were simply giving an income, no strings attached, so that they could provide for their basics, so the minimum wage income. And the results on those have been really good. So ultimately, I think that this survey and research by OpenAI I don't think it's bad, but I also don't think it necessarily added anything super important or super groundbreaking.
A sense of urgency to see what speed is required on government level to do things would have been nice.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Talking about speed of development, let's talk a little bit about the 8-hour podcast that Lex Friedman did with the whole team. We've both listened to the entire thing. I did not, the last part I skipped, Nolan. I already had an interview with him, but I need to follow up that. But the first hour, 6, I've listened. So what's your opinion?
Okay, well, I was going to say I agree largely with your estimation as you gave it to me, your review, because you listened to it first and they asked you, and you said, I loved it except for the part with the neurosurgeon. That was boring.
Yeah.
And I wholeheartedly agree. No disrespect to Mr. McDougall, but this guy was literally the most boring guest Lex Friedman ever had. They talked mostly about things that didn't even make me feel good. Like when they were talking about how surgical students in the US basically don't sleep while they're working. And first, earlier in the interview, he says, yeah, neurosurgeons learn by doing. You learn by going in as a student, as an intern to operate. That's how it works. Because he was making the differentiation with robots. And then later on, he goes to tell me that these neurosurgeon interns, they don't sleep because they're so competitive in the US that they just try to skip sleep. And how can you be a neurosurgeon and say that on a public podcast? If you're a neurosurgeon, you should know that not sleep deprivation can cause your brain to lose up to 30% cognitive functioning. You don't want to know that your neurosurgeon who's operating on your brain is probably underslept.
These guys feel themselves being the top of the food chain in that world. And if they operate on somebody and they have to take longer hours to get the job done and save a life, and that's often how these people talked about it, and he was no different. Yeah.
But I wonder how many people have died on the operating table because the neurosurgeon thought he was the shit, but was actually underslept and was basically performing like he was drunk. That's what I was wondering. And
I agree, totally agree. It was a scary bit. But the rest of the podcast is like, when do you recommend an 8-hour podcast? But this is an interesting podcast. It starts with 2 hours with Elon himself. And again, he is disclosing some interesting information where this is all going. But BCI.
I was going to make a nice little bridge like you do, but yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, I wanted to say that the most interesting part of what the neurosurgeon said was actually that he made an excellent case for getting rid of human human surgeons.
All right.
And that was the most interesting part of the whole interview, was when they discussed how they created this robot that builds the chip into your brain.
Yes.
Because basically they already created an artificial intelligence surgeon, but the neurosurgeon is only there to say okay so that he can take legal responsibility. But basically the robot with his computer vision decides where to operate and put everything in.
And a human only makes a small cut. He said it was one of the easiest procedures that he had to do. And then the robot takes over and does the difficult work already. There you go.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I thought that was mind-blowing because if I remember correctly, they now have 1,000 electrodes being hooked up to very specific, down to the micron locations in your brain to connect them to individual neurons. so that they can read these signals. And so they already had some signal loss with Nolan because some of the electrodes retracted, and they're working on that. But they want to upgrade to 70,000, if I remember correctly, or was it 17? Maybe they said 17.
Something like that. Yeah,
but 17,000 would still be a 17 times a fold increase. So talking about my favorite topic, exponential growth. Within a few years, they want to literally 17-fold the in output, just the hardware. I'm not even talking about software increase of these interfaces. And I love how they were also talking, because that's the part that you missed with Noah. He was talking about building the world's best mouse. They're still calling it a mouse. This is crazy, by the way.
They're still calling it a mouse. Yeah, that's weird, right?
Yeah. So we're gonna have BCIs, like super cyborg kind of tech, in a few years, and we'll still be calling it. I got my new mouse implant, and people will be like, okay, that's normal for us. And then imagine being an alien race coming here, and you're like, why are these people talking about building a rodent into their brain? What's going on here? Yeah. But I thought it was incredible. And he said quadriplegics are basically going to top the eSports rankings for a few years.
That was one of the key takeaways for me, that I didn't really thought through to that level. Nolan already has a bit per second rate twice as fast as we have to play games. It's bits per second that they measured it. Was it?
No, he doesn't have. He broke the world record. They mentioned that a few times, but he broke the world record, I think, for the ability to basically send signals to a computer from a human brain.
Yeah.
So his implant is unique because of how good it is and how many signals it can take, and because it's wireless. But it's not the first time that a human brain has been hooked up to a computer. And so his ability to have up and downstream interactions, that is bits per second, is the highest it's ever been from a human brain connected to a computer. But they have this app online called WebGrid, right?
Which they developed. I will test it later.
I thought it was funny that they developed this, because there's lots of apps out there, because gamers use apps. It literally reminded me of Kovacs Aim Trainer, which is a game on Steam that you can download to train your ability to shoot objects with a mouse, and it literally does the same thing as WebGrid. So I did it, and I still score higher than Nolan. But I'm a semi-professional gamer, of course. But the thing is that it's going to be very rapidly. This is going to be the last time that we'll ever be beating somebody like that.
Exactly. This is only the first patient, right? And if they keep increasing this technology, then a whole new group of people that gets first access. And they focus on quadriplegic people at the moment. And those usually sit in a chair all day anyway. So they have plenty of time to game. And they have fast communication with gaming. So the esports world is going to be influenced by that. Greatly interesting.
And motivation will play largely into this, I'm convinced. Because imagine becoming a quadriplegic. Like, already if you listen to the Nolan interview, he talks about how motivated he was to work with his brain, to just get to try and move his finger again, and how he has been basically trying to move his limbs in his body for years with nothing happening. But because you can't go anywhere, there's nothing else to do, you get a kind of dedication from these people that you could never have in a human being. It's crazy.
It's incomparable.
Yeah. And I think that's also going to drive this development. But I want to stress, this is how it starts with everything that we build to fix people, right? And it will be a very short time window where it will just be to fix people. As soon as other companies than Neuralink are capable of building this stuff, and as soon as we get to procedures that do no longer require a specialized neurosurgeon to sign off, when we get to the point where they discuss this, right? I think it was McDougall who said we want to get to the point where it could be a machine at the end of the street, and during your lunch break, you go over there to get an upgrade. And that doesn't require any human doctors or any human intervention. We were going to get to that point within 15 years, I think. Let's say within 20. Once we are at that point, of course, we'll be far beyond just quadriplegics, right? Anybody will be getting these. And people online say, I will never do this.
Will anybody get them? Or do we get a first wave of rich people who get them and get way more superpowers than the rest? Everybody? 8 billion people? I don't know.
I think, of course, it will start with people that can afford it.
Yeah.
And then the discussion will rise. Yeah, that's an interesting one. Wow. I didn't really think about that yet. But first I was going to say, then they'll have an unfair advantage in the workplace, which might give them an advantage of getting jobs. And that will then drive adoption because then everybody will want it. But then I realized that this is also on the same timeline as job loss going up. So what if it means that people who are trying to hold on to jobs are actually having these implants done first, spending money on it because they are afraid of losing their job? The permutations here are interesting too.
Absolutely. And what I thought interesting about the conversation with Elon, he also anticipates on this change, but he sees it from the light of improving the way that we can communicate with AI. And he uses a fun example, right? So for AI, it would be like talking to a tree. If they talk to us in the way that we are now, in the speed that we move and think. And it's an interesting comparison, right? There are some life forms that we do care of, but don't think that intelligence, and maybe that could be the other way around if you have it times 100 in speed. I thought it was a fun.
I thought it was super interesting when he said, like, when you're typing to your computer, it feels like an eternity goes by for your computer because it can do 3 trillion computations per second.
Yeah.
And so whenever you're typing, there's 1 trillion, 2 trillion, 3 trillion. It's funny and it's interesting, but it's not entirely true, of course, right? Because even in today's world, sometimes we sit behind a computer and we're waiting for things to happen. We are using a large amount of those trillions of calculations to do simple stuff. Like I'm looking at my screen here and I see you and you're in Barendrecht and I'm in Amsterdam. And our computers are processing the information so that we can see each other. That this is already billions of computations taking place. So it's not that every cycle is waiting for me to have an interaction with it. But it was very interesting. And I think at a base level, Elon is making very good points. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, we're almost out of time. Do we pick one more to discuss it? I see that you have something written down from Jim Fan. I want AI for my email.
I'll take 3 topics in the last 5 minutes and then we'll round it up.
All right.
So
Go ahead.
I think that we don't need to go too long into this one, but I'm going to open it up and share my screen. Yeah, I saw this incredible thing from Jim Fan, and I could recommend anybody to follow Jim Fan. Jim Fan is a former NVIDIA employee, has been working in AI quite a bit, he's gathered quite a following, and he makes really interesting posts. And he basically typed this: I don't want Gemini Live. I want an LLM to automatically filter, label, and reprioritize my Gmail according to a prompt. Inbox Zero is the one true LLM killer feature that somehow no one delivers. And this just really, I saw this and I was like, yeah, I really don't get it. Like literally from the day ChatGPT was launched, I've been waiting for this. This is not the only thing, but this is literally the first use case that comes to mind where I think this would blow everything out of the water in terms of its usefulness and value. And I really don't understand why it's not here. And so for a long time, I thought that there's probably some privacy issues or legislation holding this back or whatever. But then when Jim Fan talks about it like this, I'm like, that's not it. I don't understand what is keeping this. So I was very happy to see somebody influential post this. And I also think that's a great example of why it doesn't need to be AGI that upends our world. It's simple things like this. And I'm pretty sure that he's right. When this gets launched, whether it is from Google themselves or anybody else, that will be a radical moment. So that was one thing I wanted to discuss quickly. Then the other one was another interesting LinkedIn post that I really liked from one of my favorite influencers, Rufin Cohen. And this is chat window. He posted this: things I trust less than AI in areas like cancer detection, legal work, financial fraud, and customer service. AI has surpassed human performance in both efficiency and accuracy by a lot. And then he takes this as an example. For cancer detection, AI has achieved 72.7% detection rate, outperforming the 67.3% rate of human radiologists. When AI collaborates with professionals, the detection rate leaps even higher to almost 90%. This will likely be 99% in the next 36 months. I've seen this before. I've talked about this before. I was happy that he's posting this again. But this is a point I really want to make because people keep asking me questions like, how do you feel about AI? Is it taking too much energy? Is this costing too much resources? And people really don't understand that AI is not just ChatGPT. This is also the result of the current AI revolution, the investing and the spending and the development. And this is life-saving. And this is just one of thousands of examples that people are just glossing over when they're starting these ridiculous AI cost too much energy conversations. And there's so much like stuff like this going on.
There's so much stuff like this coming on. We have some other links that we don't have time for, but AI also developed a magnet free of rare earth metals, which is a very interesting article as well. And all the robots that we talked about and the growth is also coming from AI, right? Indeed, it's good to repeat the fact that it's not about ChatGPT only. It's way more than that. Yeah. Do you have a final one?
Yeah, the last one I wanted to discuss is, and I'll keep it simple. So Google has launched its Pixel phones lineup. Yeah. And I think that is relevant for a few reasons. It's already completely AI focused. It's probably their best phone lineup yet. Of course, it would be in some way true for every phone lineup, but they've really done an amazing job. But this is the first phone that's being introduced that is literally built around the idea of AI. There are special new chips in there for AI, and every one of the Google phones comes with Gemini basically in everything. And I think this is so incredible for a few reasons. One, Apple. Where's Apple? Still waiting for Apple. People keep telling me Apple's going to come with some AI. Yeah, I'll hold. Apple is nowhere to be found, and I don't think that's going to change anytime soon. And Google is already here with Pixel phone. So what's Apple's excuse? Second reason I think this is relevant is because look at how fast, because Microsoft has announced its AI chip-based laptops and computers, which are going to production pretty soon and starting to be rolled out. And Google already is launching now this lineup with AI chips in its phones, which is literally something that's already in the wild today. That's how fast things are going. And that ties back to the last point I wanted to make about that. People keep saying, okay, AI is tapering off. We're past the peak, and now things are slowing down because we're not seeing any progress anymore.
That is also an interesting topic. I read a lot of articles about it. I don't get where that is coming from personally, if you look to the trend lines that we're discussing, but yeah.
I think that these people are completely missing the fact that 90% of the return on investment of the hype over the last 2 years, which has led to an increase in spending, an increase in investment, an increase in research, an increase in development, we haven't even seen that yet. Yeah. That return on investment is yet to come. So we, if anything, is underhyped.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. Cool.
Okay, you have 1 minute left to get into your car, Patrick.
Yep.
I'm happy you're back from holidays.
I'm happy to be back as well. Some fun things on the horizon, some new events, but we'll talk about that in the next episode. So thanks everybody for listening and viewing. See you next time.
See you next time.